All right. I think that's it. All right, ready?
We good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Perfect.
All right, hey guys, how you doing? We want to welcome you to the debut episode of Teed Up. I'm David.
I'm Justin.
And yeah, like I said, this is the debut episode of Teed Up. It is a podcast dedicated to professional basketball, specifically the NBA. Justin and I, we've been wanting to do this for a long time. We've been friends since sixth grade, right?
Yep, sixth
Sixth
grade.
grade, yeah. And both of us are big NBA fans. And yeah, we just thought that we had a lot of ideas and a lot of opinions that we would like to share with the general public. So yeah, and like I said, we've wanted to do this for a long time. We just never had the time because Justin's in school, me with work and school and things like that. So with everything going on in the world, unfortunately, we have plenty of time to discuss a lot, and there's still a lot of good news out there. A lot of things are happening with the league.
Yeah, there's plenty of news out there right now, so why not now to start talking about it?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we have all the free time right now, so.
Yeah, and we hope everyone's staying safe out there. We hope everyone's healthy. We hope everyone's doing good. And yeah, so let's just jump right into it. There's still a lot of news about like the league coming back. There's news about if the league should play in an arena in a city where there's not an NBA team. Vegas was an idea because they don't have an NBA team. They were talking about playing in Disneyland too.
Yep, that's the latest report.
Latest reports playing in Disneyland, which I think would be, if you could do anything to get the league back, I say do it. Because you can take the proper precautions. You have no fans. You have nobody else in attendance. Maybe just the camera people to broadcast the game, and like that's it. And I think that would be a good way to start, definitely with the league.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, putting them in a set location like that is realistically the only way that they can have the league continue until there becomes treatment for the disease. With Disney, I think that's actually the perfect spot. I mean, they have all the hotel rooms there. All the players can stay there. Now, they're they'll be able to like self-isolate there with just themselves. The only issue is if somebody does come in contact with it, then if they're all in the same spot, then the league's over because basically they all have it.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Definitely you want to like make sure everyone's tested, make sure everyone in the NBA is healthy. And obviously that's easier said than done because obviously there's a lot of players in the NBA.
Yeah.
But I think it's very doable. Yeah, I mean, as long as you just have nobody from outside the league in, you have the referees, the players, the coaches, the coaching staff, the medical staff, that's it. I think that would be perfect. Yeah, definitely.
Do you think the players will be accepting of that? Do you think they'll actually want to do that? I mean, I know players want to play, but that means they won't see their families for a couple months. They won't be able to have any interaction with people outside the NBA world. So would they actually do that?
Well, that's another discussion because I remember LeBron James saying a while back that he won't play unless there's fans there. And I got to agree. As much as I want basketball to come back, I want to actually be able to go to a game, watch it. I don't want to just sit in my basement all night watching it. I want to actually be able to go to games at the Wells Fargo Center, which is our closest arena because Justin and I are both from Philadelphia. So yeah, and the thing is, like, you have a guy like Russell Westbrook who gets fueled off of the fan reactions, and like it would just be so weird to see him yell in front of like just a wall.
Yeah,
like,
there wouldn't be the interaction there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's part of the game, the fans they fuel the players. It's just part of when you watch the game, you go for the environment too.
Yeah,
so
and there's
not having the environment there.
And another big thing with sport is the home court advantage, and a big thing with home court advantage is the fans. Because if you're playing with 20,000 people that are all cheering for you, you get fueled more. But if you're just playing in an empty arena, you might not have the same momentum as you have in an arena with 25,000 people.
No, exactly. I think the perfect example of that would be the Philadelphia 76ers. When they're at home, they dominate. They have maybe 2 losses at home all year, maybe 3,
Mm-hmm.
compared to on the road where they were well below 500. It'd be interesting to see a team like that in a situation like that, because do they still dominate? Like, how do they play out without the fans? Because clearly the fans have some sort of impact on a team like that.
Honestly, I think that they would struggle, and this is coming from somebody that watches them every night because
Hmm.
I'm a diehard Sixers fan, as you are, and it does frustrate me that we can't win on the road. But yeah, I couldn't see everyone being one because another thing too with playing without fans, you have to have everybody on board, and especially if the superstars like your LeBrons, your KDs, your Kyries, your Currys, if they're not on board, then forget about it. I mean, everyone else could be on board, but having just like a couple guys who are like some of the best players in the league, and if they say they don't want it, then it's just not going to happen.
Which brings up to what I want to talk about. How do you, if they do come back and go to a place like Disney, for example, Disney, the resort, do you have, like, how do you come back? Do you continue the regular season straight to the playoffs? Or my idea that I wanted to bring up was maybe like a March Madness style tournament. You rank the teams by what the records were so far, 1 to whatever, and then you play series off of that. And it would make it quicker than what it is, because my theory is you still have 3 months left. Will these players want to do it for 3 months? Or do
No.
you go back, if you do a regular playoff series, when you go to the playoffs, do you go back to the 5 games rather than 7?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I don't think a March Madness style would work because here's the thing. Let's say, for example, New Orleans makes the 8th seed, or Memphis makes the 8th seed, because that was a pretty big battle this year. Was the 8th seed in the West.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that a team like Memphis, who besides Ja Morant is pretty boring to watch, I'm pretty sure we're both in agreement on that.
Mm-hmm.
You take Ja Morant out of the question, I really
Yeah,
could not care less about watching the Memphis Grizzlies.
exactly.
But let's say that they get hot and they beat the Lakers. That's very unlikely that it happens, but most people when they want to watch the finals want to watch the Lakers and they want to watch whoever else is on the East, perhaps the Raptors, perhaps the Celtics, perhaps Sixers, perhaps the Bucks. They want to watch
Mm-hmm.
those two powerhouses battle it out. And
Mm-hmm.
let's say you have the Magic versus the Kings. In some crazy world, in some crazy scenario, it just happens to be that way that they both get hot and you're stuck with watching the Magic and the Grizzlies. I don't want to do that, and that could possibly happen because that's what happens with March Madness. You know, UMBC, they beat the number 1 seed Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they took out Virginia, but it made for an exciting storyline at that point.
Yeah,
It never happened before, so it's like this is a one-time thing. So if you try it, you hate it, they don't have to do it again. But earlier they had mentioned possibly doing a mid-season tournament. I remember that was one thing that Adam Silver had brought up, having like a mid-season tournament. I know they do that a lot in soccer.
That was a terrible idea.
I mean, if they do want to do something like that, I think having a March Madness style tournament now would be the perfect time to test it out. I'm not saying it would work, but like I think now would be, considering they were even thinking about that, going in that direction with it. I think that it may not be the worst idea to just try it out now, because realistically, it may be one of your only shots at getting a champion this year.
Yeah, but another thing is too, people with everything going on in the world, rightfully so, they're on edge.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that they just hate this idea, they hate this one game and out style.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna, there's gonna be an uprising. People are not gonna respond kindly to this if they don't like it.
That is true.
Because they've been without basketball for so long, and they're watching their team play one game, and that's it.
Yeah, I think the players will end up having to decide it, because in the end, clearly there won't be fans and they won't be playing in their own stadiums. So it's really going to be how much time the players want to give of their time, like away from their families and stuff, to spend on completing the rest of the season.
And I don't think that everyone's going to be on board with that, and especially, I don't think a lot of superstars are going to be on board with that because they love the fan reactions. So, it's a tough topic. It's a touchy subject. How you should continue.
Agreed.
Because we've had lockouts before. There's been 3 lockouts in NBA history. There was one in '98. There was one before that, and then there was the one in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference with that is they kind of knew when the league would come back, and we kind of had an idea of when we would see NBA basketball again. With this, we have no idea. We don't even have any idea, not just when any sport comes back. We don't have an idea when your favorite restaurant's going to be open. You don't have any idea when the mall's going to be open. So, it's just such a crazy time, and it's such a crazy thing that happened, and it's going to be a while, I think, before we see NBA basketball be played. Which I hate to say it, but I think that's actually going to happen. Yeah. My main thing is, like, I would love to see the NBA right now, but my main concern is everyone staying healthy and making sure we beat this thing. Because at the end of the day, this is just something that we watch, and obviously I would care more about the players' well-being than them actually going out and playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was going to say they recently announced today that the draft has been pushed back from June to like August September timeframe, I believe it was. So I think that shows that they are definitely going to try and have some sort of continuation of the season, whether it's playoffs, whatever they do. There will be something eventually, but it's more of who knows when. I mean, they are opening their practice facilities May 8th. So we'll see if that leads to anything. I think they said it's going to be 2.5 weeks from then. So we're looking like first week of June, possibly for anything. But some of these players haven't touched a basketball in over a month now, since the season's been canceled. Because not everybody has their own private gym that they can go to or in their house. So it's
not everybody has like a house like LeBron where you just have a basketball court just right there. A lot of players live in apartments.
Yeah.
And their basketball court that Matisse Thybulle, you see him doing TikToks, and you see him, just in his tiny apartment. Yeah. And the Sixers actually gave him 2 basketballs, and he's like, I don't know what to do with these. I have I can't do anything. Sure. I live in an apartment. He said, I live in an apartment. What do they expect me to do with these? Yeah. I think it's great that they're opening the practice facility for one-on-one stuff. Obviously you can't do 5-on-5, but they're taking the proper precautions, and it's a step in the right direction. It does show me that you are getting basketball back in some time eventually if you open up the practice facilities.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was watching on SportsCenter. They said Jason Tatum hasn't done like really anything in a while because
Giannis hasn't.
They just don't have the facility in their house. Like for him, I believe he's still on his rookie deal, so he's not really multi-millionaire, billionaire. He doesn't have the money to spend on his own gym yet, so he doesn't have that opportunity. And he lives in a cold place like Boston, where the weather isn't nice yet. He can't even go outside really either. So I think it's going to be a while. Opening facilities is great, but until everyone can get back in the gym, they practice, it's going to be 2 weeks after they start practicing till they can even consider starting up. And they may need some like preseason games or something, just warm up to get back in the swing of things.
And another thing is too, a lot of the you were saying that players can't play outside because they live in cold climates. Even if that's the case, players they took down the rims. Most parks took down the rims, so they don't even have the blacktop courts. So, and this is what they do for a living. So they got to be able to play basketball. They got to be able to just shoot around for an hour at least, and run a couple drills, just something to keep them in shape, just keep them ready for whenever the season does come back.
No, yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
Absolutely. But like we said, still a lot of news coming out, and we're gonna talk about what we think, how the season should play out. We're gonna talk about what we think, what's some awards that we think who would have won MVP, things like that. So let's get into some of the news. This isn't necessarily NBA news, but it does affect the NBA. The NCAA will now let athletes collect payment from endorsements. So if they do a commercial, for example, if they do a billboard, they will get royalty from that. And this does affect the NBA because you had Jalen Green, who was a top 5 prospect in high school. He was projected to go play D1 somewhere. I'm not quite sure where, like what schools were interested in him, but I do know he was going to go D1, and I've known that he's a pretty good high school basketball player for a while. But
It goes somewhere good.
But he decided to sign with a G League team because the NCAA wouldn't pay him. The NCAA doesn't pay anybody. So now, rather than go through a year of college where you're broke, because even if like you're playing on a Duke Blue Devil team, you're still a broke college kid. Like just because you're on SportsCenter every night doesn't mean that you're gonna be making a lot of money off that. ESPN will make money off your name, but you won't make a dime off of being on SportsCenter or anything. And
no, you don't get paid at all. You only get to use your payment is getting to be able to use the nice facilities that they have.
Exactly.
And you get to get an education for free. But if you're only getting there for 1 year, you're really not getting anything out of it. You're just getting, most of those players go there. They barely show up to class. Some of them take easier tests. Like the quality of the education isn't even that great for them. Most of the time, like once March Madness comes around, they're not even in class. They're away traveling.
They
So it's like
about school.
They don't care about academics. So like while that's nice, it doesn't really affect them that much.
No, not at all. So, I think it's a great move. Obviously, that the NCAA will actually, stop hogging all that money, or at least let the players make money, because the NCAA is $1 billion business.
Yeah.
And the reason it's a $1 billion business is because of the athletes that play. That makes it $1 billion business. And the TV stations, your ESPNs, they get paid for broadcasting it. The coaches get paid. The medical staff gets paid. The only real group of people that don't get paid are the players. And the reason everyone else gets paid is because of the players. And now they're going to be able to actually make some money off of their name. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think this is
pretty unfair.
I think this is going to affect the NBA draft, because now you're not going to have so many one and dones. Maybe players will want to stay 4 years.
Yeah, you have the aspect of you actually want to get your full education before you get to the NBA. Exactly. You can still you'll be getting paid for your endorsements and all that. So it's basically the same as playing in the NBA. Your contract, you won't be making as much money, obviously, but you'll still be making money and getting an education, and then you can enter the draft. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's and that's another thing with this one and done stuff. I never really liked the one and done. I always thought that they should just go straight out of high school. Like, do you really think Lonzo Ball coming out of Chino Hills really needed to go to UCLA?
No, it was purely pointless.
No. Zion could have been ready for the NBA right when he got out of high school. There would have been no need for him to play at Duke. And that goes for pretty much every number 1 overall pick, every lottery pick, every first round pick, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's wasting their opportunity, because like when Zion broke his shoe, he could have tore his ACL.
He could have ended his entire basketball career.
Just like that. And he hadn't been paid a cent for what he's done on the court. Before he could even reach the NBA to get paid, he could have ended it all. So why not just go straight from high school right to the NBA? You get your money then, and it takes care of it. But now with this new, you get paid for college, it actually has a point of going to college. You can get paid and get your education.
And another thing is too, again with the college life, textbooks are expensive, tuition's expensive, especially if you go to a school like Duke or North Carolina or UCLA or someplace like that. It's pretty expensive.
Yep.
So they can use that endorsement money to actually pay for their school. And I remember like Ben Simmons, he said he had $100 in his bank account. He used it all to buy bed sheets, and then he had no more money left. And we're talking about a guy that was a number 1 college player, number 1 overall pick.
Yep.
On ESPN, on YouTube highlights, not making a single dime off his name, which I think is just ridiculous.
It is. It's a messed up system, and I'm glad they're finally getting around to fixing it. The one thing I am excited for about this is, with the athletes being able to make money off their character, they'll be able to bring back the famous March Madness video games. So I'll be excited to see that.
Mhm. And this is unrelated, but we'll get NCAA football.
Yep, exactly. We
I
get
used to
all those
love playing.
video games back.
Used to love playing NCAA football.
Yeah, all those college games. Like, you play Madden, you play 2K, you get tired of it. Sometimes you just want to play college, you know?
Yeah,
Play with your
and,
favorite college team.
and I remember the games like back in the day. They used to have like just generic names. Like they would never have like a, for example, like let's say that they made a March Madness game today. Like they wouldn't say Zion Williamson's on the team. They would say a 6'8", 260 power forward is on the team and he's number
Yeah,
one.
they
But you kind of
give
got
like
the idea. Okay,
they
that's
gave the
Zion
number
Williamson.
one.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
wouldn't actually use the name, and now you'll be able to use the name. You'll be able to actually
exactly,
play with the players, love their
exactly,
faces. Like, it's just a better. This
exactly.
situation, they're fixing it. They're making it better. It's going to end up being better for everybody. Obviously, the NCAA won't make as much money off of it, but they already are rich, so they don't need the money.
Definitely. So yeah, I can't wait to see what how players will endorse themselves.
Hmm.
You get seeing commercials and things like that. I think that'll be fun to see.
Definitely.
Definitely a topic to keep up with. So the next topic I wanted to get into, Justin and I are in a group chat with a bunch of guys, and we were talking about Brandon Roy because somebody sent a post in about Brandon Roy, and it got me thinking, like, damn, like, remember Brandon Roy? Like, used to be a
Yeah,
really good
he was
player.
very good.
Yeah, I remember like Kobe
Very good.
Bryant said, like, yeah, he's just an amazing player, and he kind of just fell off. Like he kind of fell off the face of the earth. It's not his fault that he did that. Injuries caught up to him,
Yeah,
and
it wasn't him.
it was very sad to see. And so I just started writing down just a bunch of guys that had amazing careers, had all-star careers, had streaks where they were some of the best players in the league. Like, for example, Derrick Rose. I think
Hmm.
Derrick Rose is an obvious one. He literally went from being in the NBA, or excuse me, being an NBA MVP to coming off the bench for the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, he definitely took a downward spiral in his career there. I mean, the Chicago Bulls haven't been the same since
No.
Jordan left, and they finally got a star in Derrick Rose. And then as soon as he went down with these injuries, the Bulls have never been the same. So
Yeah, and when I say that these stars fell off, I don't mean that it's their fault. Obviously, some of them it's not their fault. Injuries just
hmm
happen, and that's just life. That happens. And Derrick Rose and Brandon Roy are one of them. Derrick Rose, I remember watching that. It was just a freak thing that happened. He just jumped up,
hmm
went up for a layup, and just it just got hurt, and it was very sad to see because he was an MVP. Now there's talks that he might be the first player in NBA history to win Most Improved Player and MVP in his career.
yeah,
Another guy with injuries, T-Mac,
yeah.
definitely T-Mac. Another guy that was at the height of his career and injuries just caught up to him. He was 13 points, or how many points was it in like 30 seconds? 13 points in 30
I
seconds,
believe it was
something like that.
13 or 11, something like that. It was very incredible.
But yeah, it was just yeah. Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas was another one.
Isaiah Thomas was an MVP candidate in Boston,
Hmm.
and then he got traded to Cleveland, and it just kind of all went down. I remember he got traded to Cleveland. LeBron traded him to the Lakers.
Hmm.
Then he
And then he went to
signed.
the Wizards.
Then he went
He was cut and went to the Wizards, I believe,
cut
right?
cut from yeah, I think he was cut from the Lakers. Went to the Wizards. Still on the Wizards today.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really don't know what happened with that.
Yeah, that
I
was a interesting one. I think it may have been due to his size. I think he was at a disadvantage the
yeah,
whole time,
yeah, and
and
that's a
then he did get injured, and that injury I think sort of put him back. He wasn't in the same physical shape that he was before, and being a small guy like that, you have to be in the best physical shape to be competing with these 6'8", 6'9", 200+ pound guys. I think he lost that, and that caused him to not be able to perform at the highest level.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people like kind of started to figure him out. It's kind of like,
Hmm.
when you get a player like I don't mean to bring up baseball on a basketball show, but like you remember Reese Hoskins
Hmm.
had an
Yeah.
amazing first year. Then pitchers started to kind of figure him out. and he kind of went downhill.
Yeah, exactly.
Started averaging like under 200 after the All-Star break this year. So the same thing kind of happened with Isaiah Thomas. You know, they realized that they figured out his game, and I think it kind of just caught up to him, and he just went downhill.
Mm-hmm. He also had a lot of off-court issues with like his sister passing away and stuff like that, and that can definitely affect you.
That can definitely affect it, and obviously if that's the case, you know, it's not his fault, and that was a very tragic thing to happen. I remember when that happened, and he still decided to play like the day it happened, which is very respectable.
He dropped like 50 points or something that night too, if I remember correctly. He scored a lot. I don't know if it was 50, maybe it may have been 40, but
I still love Isaiah. I love Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is one of my favorite players.
Oh yeah, I remember when they were playing the Sixers earlier this year, and a fan yelled something inappropriate at him because he was shooting free throws. And he asked him, "Why'd you do that?" And the Philadelphia fan was like, "I just wanted a Frosty." I remember that was a classic.
He went into the stands. I remember watching that, and I was, and all they said was Isaiah Thomas has been ejected for going into the stands. I was like, all right.
Interesting.
Who else do I have down? Avery Bradley. At one point, and this was the same year that Isaiah Thomas was going on his MVP streak. At one point, Avery Bradley was one of the best defensive players, if not the best defensive player in the league. I mean, he was an amazing two-way player. He could shoot. He was an amazing defender.
He was perfect next to Isaiah Thomas there too.
It was awesome, and it was awesome. And I'm not the biggest fan of the Celtics, but that team that year was pretty good. It was very good.
It definitely was. I think with him, one of the reasons he faded was coaching. I think in Boston's always had very good coaching.
Right.
So I think they really were able to get the best out of him. So I think once he left, the coaches weren't able to do the same with him. And he also has had a lot of injuries too. So between injuries and coaching, I think that's one of the two main reasons why he fell off.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe he just didn't fit with like Brad Stevens' system. Whatever the case was, he just fell off. I remember he went to the Lakers. Pistons, and he's still a good defender, a solid defender today. He's still
a good role player now.
He's a very good role player.
Good player off the bench, but he's not a star like he was. He's not a starter, that's for sure. On a good team, at least.
Maybe that's just something that happens with players. You know, like they just have one really good year, and maybe they get the spotlight on him, and they kind of are kind of afraid to be in the spotlight because some guys don't want that number one role.
No, they just don't like the attention.
Some guys some guys are like behind the scenes. You know, they want to do the dirty work. They want to do what doesn't get on the highlight reel. I'll bring up a former Sixer. Aaron McKie was just like that. I don't remember. I didn't watch a lot of Aaron McKie because he was a little bit before my time. I was born in 2001. He was
earlier than that.
Yeah, before that he was playing, but he was like a scrappy guy. Amazing defender. He was a great guy to pair with Allen Iverson. But he just never got the spotlight. He gets the spotlight here because that's what fans that's what our fans like.
But he never got the spotlight from the rest of the league. It was more just Philadelphia.
Like that's like a guy like T.J. McConnell. He was never. I was never like the biggest fan of T.J. McConnell.
But Philadelphia loved TJ.
But Philly loved TJ McConnell. I thought he was a little overrated, I will be honest, because there wasn't really much he could do. But I will give him credit. He was a hustler.
Defensively, he was great.
He was a hustler. He was a very good point guard. He was very, very, very.
He just couldn't score. He was small again.
Yeah, he was a small. He was 6'2", and I think he never amazed me.
Yeah. He was just okay, but defensively he worked hard, and that's why people liked him.
That's another. Yeah, again, he was a hustler, which I respect, and I wish him nothing but the best in Indiana. Yeah. Moving on with this list, Joakim Noah.
Yeah.
Remember Joakim Noah?
Of course.
I remember Joakim Noah. I'm not really sure what happened with him either. I think maybe age just got up to him.
A little bit of age system. I feel like the league kind of evolved. The league more evolved to shooters, and he's not a shooter. Same thing happened to kind of Dwight Howard.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of like one like that, kind of those big guys that are more inside scorers. Great in the early 2000s, but now that we're entering 2020, it's more of a you got to be able to shoot.
You got to have a jump. Yeah, you got to have a jump shot, and I think that's kind of what happened to a guy like DeAndre Jordan. Never really had a
DeAndre
jump
Jordan's
shot.
another one.
If in this game today, you do need a jump shot, and that's why I'm worried about. Like, I hate to bring up the Sixers again, but that's why I'm worried about Ben Simmons, because he still has yet to have a decent jumper where he feels confident that he can knock down the open ones. And
well, one thing he said recently, which I saw, was he said that he would rather shoot 40+% from three and know he's going to shoot 40+% than like go out like most of these guys now. Some of these guys are just shooting threes and shooting 30-25%. He said he'd rather not take the shot and give it to a person that has a better chance of making it till he knows he can consistently knock it down 40+% from three, which I mean, I don't necessarily agree with. But that's what his reason. That's what he says. That was his latest excuse for why he isn't shooting.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's just an excuse for me. Like that doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah, it's just another excuse.
It just tells me you're still scared to shoot.
That was the latest thing he put out.
And I love Ben Simmons. He's my point guard. Love him. I'm so glad we have him. But he's got to have the jump shot. We're not asking him to shoot like Steph Curry. We're not asking him to knock down 40-foot shots. We're not asking him to do nothing but shoot. But if you're open in the corner or you're open on a wing, take the shot. And
people are giving you 15 feet. You're wide open.
Exactly.
I mean, I've been at games where I've seen him warming up, and he can drain 3-4 in a row.
He can hit the threes. Like you've seen him in practice. He can hit it.
He can definitely do it. It's just a matter of him. I think it's a mental thing. And I think that may be something with a lot of these players, too. Once they get injured, that we've listed so far, these stars, once they are injured, they kind of have that mental picture of it, and they can kind of get blocked off to where they once were. It just prevents them from ever returning.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to go on a Ben Simmons rant, but that's a very touchy subject for myself, and I'm sure it is for you as well.
For all Sixers fans, pretty much.
Sixers fans. If we bring up the Sixers a lot, sorry. It's just we had a rough year.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I remember I was like, dude, we should just cancel the season. And moral of the story is be careful what you wish for because
yes.
I just get another guy, Jeremy Lin. And I actually know why Jeremy Lin's career fell off, and it was all because of Carmelo Anthony.
Really? Why do you say that?
Because in 2012, when Jeremy Lin, when he had the whole Linsanity streak,
yep,
the Knicks were going to give him a nice contract. The Knicks were going to give him a really nice contract. And Melo kind of came in and said, no, don't do that. This is my team. This is my Knicks. I'm the face of the Knicks. It's either him or me. So he was kind of doing like the jealous girlfriend kind of thing where he said, look, it's either Melo's Knicks or it's Jeremy Lin's Knicks. And if you choose Jeremy Lin, I'm out. So, yeah. And they chose Melo.
Yeah, I think, again, that was a mix of coaching and mental fatigue on Jeremy Lin. I think once he left the Knicks, he wasn't coached the same way. He wasn't put in a system that fit him. And then I think mentally he thought maybe that the fact that the Knicks didn't want him or wouldn't bring him back, that he just wasn't good anymore. And it can get in your head, like stuff like that may have prevented him from ever returning to the Linsanity form.
Yeah, and I mean, he had a decent run in Houston. He was a solid starting point guard. He paired well with that team with Chandler Parsons, James Harden, Dwight Howard. So he had a decent – Robert Covington, I think, was on that team too. Yeah. So he had a decent run there, but he was never at the top where he was in New York.
He was never in Linsanity mode again.
He was never in Linsanity mode. And part of that was the Knicks being a terrible franchise. And part of that was mental. And part of that was Melo having a big ego.
Yeah.
Which Melo's known to have a big ego. I'm not wrong in saying that. He has a big ego. He still thinks this is 2009 where he can just go off.
Shoot 35 shots a game.
Exactly, but it's not the case. You are not that good anymore.
He's not good enough for that anymore. Yeah,
exactly.
He's not that player anymore.
It's just not you're not in your prime anymore. Exactly. And the thing is, he was never like a top 10 player in the NBA. He was never like Kobe or LeBron. He was never there. He was just kind of like he's an all-star, But he's
Yes.
not like amazing. Like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, let me tell you, Melo was up there top 10 greatest of all time. That's not what I
Yeah.
say because
Mm-mm.
he just wasn't. He just
No, he's not.
he never stood out to me. He was I'm not denying that he's not an all-star. He's an all-star. He was an all-star in Denver, had an amazing run in Denver, had an amazing run in New York in the early 2010s. But he was never at like that next level that, LeBron was or
Mm-hmm.
that
He was
Kobe
kind of like
was.
a wannabe Kobe. Took all the shots Kobe took, but he just never made it with the efficiency Kobe had. Kind of like a Walmart version of Kobe.
Yeah,
Almost.
and I think another thing with that is he just didn't put in the work.
No, he was kind of lazy.
And Vince Carter did that too. Vince Carter could
Mm-hmm.
have been up there with Kobe and LeBron, but he just never decided. He never put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that he's not I mean, obviously he still is an all-star, but there's a difference because you have your all-stars, and then you have that next level where you have your LeBrons and your KDs and your Currys and your Kobes and your Jordans and your
Mm-hmm.
Shaqs.
Yeah.
And guys like Melo and Vince Carter just didn't put the work in to do that.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. And then I think the last one we have on here was John Wall.
John Wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, that's not his fault. Injuries caught up to him. Yeah, what else can you say? Injuries suck.
Definitely. And he's kind of like a Derrick Rose type player. Like he has that athletic ability about him where he dominated with his athletic ability. He was flashy like that. Now that he's been injured, I know he's trying to make a comeback next year. I'll be curious to see how that affects him because it's been a while. I think it's been 2 years now since he's played.
I believe so, 2 or 3 years, yeah.
It's been a little bit now.
And I wish John Wall nothing but the best. He's so fun to watch in his prime. That 360 layup, you remember like when he would do that 360 layup? That dude, he's so fun to watch. I mean, like amazing. So yeah,
I agree.
I'm lucky that I got to watch these guys that I just named before they kind of ran out of their ran their course. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I agree.
And look, I wish them nothing but the best. Derrick Rose is having a comeback year. He's doing really well with Detroit. Excuse me.
Yep.
So yeah, I wish these guys nothing but the best.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get into our history segment. So basically, every episode we tell you what happened on that day in history that happened with the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So for May 1st, which is the date that this episode will go up, Michael Jordan of the Bulls obviously became the first player to score 50 or more points in consecutive playoff games. This was when he played Cleveland in Game 2 and dropped 55 in a 106-101 victory. And then in Game 1 of that, he dropped 50 in another victory.
Yeah, that's some pretty incredible basketball right there. I mean, scoring 50 points is hard enough, and especially in a regular season game, scoring 50 points is pretty impressive. When you can do it in a playoff game, that's even more impressive. And then to do it in back-to-back playoff games, that's just incredible.
Yeah, and there's only a couple of guys that can do that.
Mm-hmm. That's Kobe, what puts them up at the top.
Your Jordan, your Kobe, obviously, like LeBron. I just said.
Yeah, up there with your GOAT conversation.
Mm-hmm. And it's really good timing too, especially with the Last Dance being on.
It's perfect.
And I got to tell you, this Last Dance is phenomenal. I'm having so much fun with it, watching this, dude. Because here's the thing: going into it, I had low expectations. I'll be honest with you, I had low expectations because I'm like, I've seen a lot of Jordan documentaries. I've researched Michael Jordan. I know what happened. Went to Laney High School, cut from his varsity team, played JV, went to UNC, won the chip in '82, got drafted by the Bulls, played until '93, won 3 rings in a row, retired for 2 years, came back, won 3 more, and that's all she wrote. But there's so many little things that you just miss and so many things that you don't even know happened. People from the 90s that watched Michael Jordan are saying, I had no idea that the Detroit Pistons had a Jordan rule where every time Jordan would go up, we would try to hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't know
exactly.
that until this documentary came out.
Which is why I think this documentary is so good. These little details that like the same thing happens
Just little
obviously with
things.
players today, like LeBron and when Kobe played, like all these guys. The same thing happens. We don't actually know the full details. So that's what this makes this documentary so great. We're understanding what went on day to day, game to game basis here, how things went on behind the scenes. Like I didn't know, I don't know if you heard of, but I didn't hear of the Dennis Rodman vacation.
I had no idea Dennis Rodman like wanted to go on a vacation just
Yeah,
randomly in the
that
season. I had no idea.
no, I'd never heard that before. So that was a very interesting point for me.
And the thing is too,
About
I
that
didn't know
episode.
like I didn't know how Dennis Rodman started having like the funky hair and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I didn't know like
Or the one with
Madonna.
the 33s.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that what that was about. I just thought it was, oh, weird hairdo.
I had no idea.
Hmm.
And maybe that was known, maybe that isn't.
Yeah, like maybe
But
people knew back then, but like for us, especially as people who didn't get to watch Jordan, this documentary is just changing so many people's opinions on that team and how great they were.
yeah, and I think this actually, shows a lot of people that never watched MJ. Kind of shows them this is why we say MJ's the GOAT.
Hmm.
This is why we say he's the greatest of all time. This is why we say he's better than LeBron, because you get all these little details about him at practice and him, coach, pretty much like, player coach with his team. And yeah, and I've learned a lot more about like his teammates. I've learned a lot more about Phil Jackson. I've learned a lot more about Scottie Pippen. I've learned a lot more about Dennis Rodman that I just didn't have the information to, whether it was because I just simply didn't know or simply because nobody knew because it just wasn't news.
I've learned so much about the Bulls from 1980 to 2000, and there I've just learned so much information that I had no idea even existed before this.
Absolutely, and I think another thing too is people are going to go back and start watching more Michael Jordan.
His highlights, yeah.
Absolutely, which is definitely what I've been doing. I've been watching a lot more MJ. I've just been going back and just watching, those key games. Like I was watching the last shot game. I was watching the full
Hmm.
game against Cleveland where he hit the shot where he was doing the fist pump in the air. So yeah, it's really interesting and it's giving me something to look forward to in this quarantine. Definitely
Yeah, it's perfect timing for it. I mean,
perfect.
we're
Yeah,
all
yeah.
begging for sports right now, and this
And
is
they
just perfect.
just say, hey, you know what? Bam, we got this MJ documentary. We got you. We're ESPN. We're gonna hook you up.
Yeah, thank God they moved it up
Good
because it was
looks,
what
ESPN.
I think it was what originally June or July. I think it was like end June, early July, I believe was the original date it was going to come out, and then they moved it up here, and it's just been perfect. I mean, after each episode, I just want more.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to wait another week to watch this. I want to watch it now. Like, come on.
It's
Like,
killing me every week.
yeah, it is. And I wanted to know like what's gonna happen, and if anyone can leak the next episodes for me, hit me up, please, because
We need to know.
I want more. I'm craving The Last Dance.
Hmm.
So even though that has us, kind of holding us over until we get NBA basketball back live, there's still a discussion about, what would have happened, how would the season have played out, who would have won what awards, and we kind of wrote down some ideas. We're kind of going to go over who we think should have won the awards.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm going to start it out. I'll start us out. Who do you think should have won Most Improved Player?
So for my most improved player, I think it should be Devonte Graham. Now, Devonte Graham is not a household name like some of these other guys in the conversation, but Graham is averaging 20 points, 3.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, while shooting 42% on nearly 9 3-point attempts per game. He's made the jump from probably, maybe top 350 player in the NBA to now arguably a top 75 borderline all-star player this season. And that's just crazy improvement. I mean, Graham has gone from a second round, 4-year player at Kansas, who got drafted second round by the Hornets, went to their G League, came up late last season, just did a little bit. He was just okay in the summer league, and then the season started, and then just bam, he hit everybody. I mean, nobody was really expecting it, and I think that's the reason he should win Most Improved Player.
I
What are your
agree he's
thoughts?
underrated.
Hmm.
I don't think he should win Most Improved.
Why not? Who do you
Well,
think
like
should?
you said, he's not a household name, but I feel like,
Hmm.
to be Most Improved, you have to go from not being a household name to a household name. And you know who did that? Pascal Siakam, who I think should have won Most Improved. Last year with Kawhi, averaged 16, 7, and 3. We already knew he was pretty good. Kawhi leaves, and he bumps his stuff up to 24, 8, and 4, while leading the Raptors to being a powerhouse in the East. So you already saw flashes that Pascal Siakam was going to be really, really good, and then he just met those expectations. So I think he deserves the Most Improved Player.
I agree with you. Siakam has had a very good season.
Yeah, and I don't think Devontae Graham has that yet. I'm sorry.
I still think the jump he's made from being borderline even player in the NBA to almost he's averaging 20 points per game, 7.5 assists. Like I think that jump is just more incredible. It's more of a gap that he's closed down than Siakam went from probably arguably top 25 to top 10, whereas, Graham went from 350 to barely being in the league to all the way up to 75, 100. I think that jump's just bigger, so it's more impressive in my opinion. But I agree when they vote, Siakam is more of a household name, so I think that gives him an advantage. It definitely gives him an advantage.
Definitely.
But I think, in my opinion, I think Devontae Graham should win the award. Now, if Siakam wins, I wouldn't be shocked because he is a household name. But I think Luka is another name because he kind of has the same storyline as Siakam. He was just okay last year, and now this year he's amazing, MVP candidate. I don't think he wins, but he's definitely a candidate.
But here's the thing. Those are empty stats because he's playing for the Hornets.
Yes, but he also doesn't have the teammates that Siakam does. Siakam has teammates that have picked him up. So he has the ability to win. Graham's doing everything he can to win. Siakam could take a night off and that team will still win.
The Hornets are still a laughing stock of the league.
That's true, but I mean, he doesn't have the best coach in the league. He doesn't have the players.
Pascal Siakam lost the Raptors' key guy, and he said, "Look, I'm going to run this team. This is going to be my Raptors team," and he did. And people are predicting that the Raptors could go back to the finals.
That's true. They're a powerhouse in the East. I mean, that team is still good though. They didn't lose Kyle Lowry. They didn't lose Marc Gasol. They've had other players step up. That Kyle Lowry player on that team to help the team grow. Devontae Graham doesn't have that. The Hornets are terrible outside Graham. So I think they signed Rozier, but he didn't do anything.
So Devontae Graham can win Most Improved Player if he leaves Charlotte, has a mentor for him, then come back to me, and I'll probably say Devontae Graham wins Most Improved.
Okay, we'll see.
I'm not denying it. Devontae Graham is a great player. I think he's improved tremendously, but I just don't think he has the it factor that Siakam does. Just because solely on the fact that they're empty stats, it's kind of like a Michael Carter Williams type of situation. I hate to bring up.
Yeah, but didn't he win Rookie of the Year?
Yeah. But here's the thing. Remember when he left Philly? Remember we got traded from here?
Yeah, I mean, I know Siakam's a better player, but I think Devontae Graham gets the more votes just because he has the better, not better stats.
But the Hornet, but awards like this, your MVPs, your Rookie of the Years, these they also have to have the team back you up.
Do you think they're going to give Siakam back-to-back Most Improved Player though?
Yeah.
I don't think the league would want that either. I don't think they want their Most Improved Player being a back-to-back
Why not?
player.
Why not? Lou Will has won 6th Man of the Year 3 out of the last 5 years. He's probably going to win it this year again.
That's a different award. I think Most Improved Player, it's supposed to go to young and up-and-coming players, which is why Siakam won it last year. And now it's going from already player that's established to a good player that's gone to a great player. I think it's more of an award for just players to make a name for themselves. I think that's more the purpose of the Most Improved Player award, in my eyes at least.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. Again, Siakam is a household name, and the league likes household names.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a toss-up. I think if I had to give you 3 players that I think would win, I think the 3 are Devontae Graham. I would put Siakam in there as well, and then I think Bam Adebayo would be my other third.
I think Bam Adebayo is a much better candidate than Devontae Graham.
That's interesting. I think him and Bam and Graham are both kind of the same situation. They're both players that were very underrated coming out of college, and now they've hit and they've been growing, and they're finally getting the with Whiteside left, Kemba left, and now they're both getting the opportunity to shine. But again, in Miami, Bam has Jimmy. Who does Devontae Graham have? He has nobody. He has nobody to help him win to put his team in a position.
Yeah, but if Miami didn't have Adebayo, they wouldn't be the second best team in the East. I truly don't believe that. He is such a contributor for that Miami Heat team. If they just had any other average center and not Bam Adebayo, I don't think that they would be in the position that they would be in. I think they would be at the position that we all predicted Miami would be at, which is like a 6-7 seed. Well, now they have that Bam Adebayo, who comes in and is a dominant center to go alongside with a guy like Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic and all those guys and Tyler Herro. And so I think if you were to rank him, I would put Siakam number 1, I would put Adebayo 2, and I would put Derrick Rose 3.
Derrick Rose 3.
I would put Derrick Rose 3. I would put Derrick Rose over Devontae Graham just because of the fact that Derrick Rose went from being injured, not playing that well, to now he's like, hey, we got to watch out for this Derrick Rose guy because he might just go off.
He definitely has, and I think he's in a situation like Devontae Graham. If you're going to give most improved player to a player like that, it's definitely like it depends on your point of view of how you give most improved player.
I think
if you're giving it to a star, then like a good player that's going to a great, then I think you can give it to Siakam. But if you want it to be a not necessarily household name who showed out and proved everyone wrong, I think it's a Graham or a Derrick Rose, like you said, or Bam Adebayo. It's all your opinion on the award, basically, and it depends on who the voters are and what their opinions are.
Yeah, and so I think the league will give it to Siakam, and I think he deserves it, frankly, but we'll have to see. Next up, we got Defensive Player of the Year. Who do you have for Defensive Player?
So for my Defensive Player of the Year, I have Philadelphia 76er Ben Simmons. Now, it may be a little of a reach here, but
it's biased.
No,
it's biased. It's biased. You know, he plays for your favorite team. He plays for my favorite.
No, there's proof behind this. He can guard 1 through 5, right? Okay. He's guarded all-stars like Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, and Pascal Siakam.
Okay.
And he's guarded them for at least 10 minutes. All those players have shot a combined 54 out of 130. That's 40% from the field against him. And overall, whenever Simmons is defending anyone, they just shoot 40%. And even with, so far he had that shoulder injury. He's had a couple different injuries so far. He still leads the league in steals. Like, that's his best part of his game. He's young. He's athletic. He's just a monster on the defensive end, and he shut opposing stars down. You can consistently, night in, night out, Brett Brown can put him on the opposing team's best player, and he can limit him in what he does.
I agree. He's a tremendous defender. You know, I love Ben Simmons, even though I just ripped him for his jump shot 10 minutes ago.
He hasn't improved his jump shot, but he certainly has improved his defense.
He has improved his defense. And if there was a most improved defense award, I think Ben Simmons would win it unanimously.
That's for sure.
But I think there's a little bit of bias in there because you are a Sixers fan and Ben Simmons plays for the Sixers, obviously. I'm giving the defense player to Giannis, and your reasoning is kind of the same as mine. He can guard 1 through 5 because he's 6'10". His wingspan is huge. He's so athletic. He's amazing. Averaged 11.5 defensive rebounds a year. He's always down there scrapping for rebounds. I think he's an amazing defender. He can guard the perimeter. He can guard inside. I think you got to give it to Giannis. And I think he's had such a tremendous year on defense.
That's an interesting one. I mean, I agree he's had a very good defensive season, but he doesn't get put in the positions Ben does. He can guard 1 through 5, but does he? No, he doesn't guard 1 through 5 night in, night out. Ben Simmons is guarded. He doesn't guard 1 through 5 night in, night out.
Giannis can guard anybody. Giannis can guard anybody he wants.
He doesn't play center for him. He doesn't guard any centers. That's Brooke Lopez and Robin Lopez's job. He doesn't guard their guards. Their guards do that. Ben Simmons guards the opposing team's point guard night in, night out while having to play backup center for the Sixers while Embiid's out. He's guarding 1 through 5. He can shut them all down, and he's a monster on the defensive end. He's poking the ball free.
He's inconsistent when he guards. He's inconsistent when he guards big men.
He is. I'll give you that.
You might not see it. You might not see it on the stat sheet. You might see that like that like 40% stat or whatever. But if you watch him guard centers, he's very inconsistent.
No, yeah, he is.
And I'm not dissing him for that. Obviously, if you're Ben Simmons and you have to guard a center, which is guarding out of your position. Obviously, it's going to be tough for you. So I'm not blaming him for being inconsistent. I'm just saying he is inconsistent at guarding big men.
And while he is, that's not his goal. He's a point guard, so he is guarding the guards most of the time.
But I think –
which is why he leads the league in steals. He's guarding all these guards. He's not going to have the rebounds like Giannis does because he's not underneath the basket. He's more out on the perimeter.
Right. But I think the league will actually give it to Giannis because the league does love Giannis. I mean,
100%. The league does, and we'll talk about this later. But I don't think Giannis wins MVP. So I think if he doesn't win MVP, I think he gets Defensive Player of the Year if he doesn't win MVP. If he wins MVP, I don't think they give him 2 awards.
All right. I think we agree on Sixth Man and Rookie of the Year. Sixth Man, I have Lou Will.
Yeah, but Lou Will, that's an obvious one.
I mean, that's obvious. He's just the best sixth man in the league. There's no
Derrick Rose is up there.
Yeah,
I'd put him in consideration. There's considerations, but I don't think nobody's done the level that Lou Williams has done.
I will say this. This has been the toughest year for Lou Will because there have actually been opponents for him that actually gave him a run for his money to win this award, like your Derrick Roses, things like that.
You got Derrick Rose. Dennis Schroeder's done a fantastic job.
Montrezl Harrell's had an amazing year. This was like the first year.
I don't like Montrezl Harrell, but
I know you don't. You're not.
I got a little beef with him, but I have to say he has played well off the bench.
Do we have time to explain your beef?
So okay, yeah,
we have time. We have time.
So
I'm listening.
I can't bring it up, but Montrezl Harrell, I decided to DM him after a game, and I wasn't exactly happy about how the refs were giving him all the calls, and we almost beat them. That was the Shake Milton game. And I DM'd him, and he said some not very nice things back. We'll put it that way.
You didn't say anything nice to him either. You got to realize he's a human too, bro.
But I didn't go in nearly the detail he went. And let's just say this: I'm blocked.
I've been blocked from Montrezl Harrell.
Yes, he responded to me and blocked me. Even though, I mean, I brought up some good points. The refs gave them a lot of free throws.
Game, they did.
And we didn't have Embiid and Simmons, so.
They did.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting him to respond. It was more of an anger DM, and, you know.
You didn't think he was going to respond, but he did.
Yeah.
He called your bluff. Yeah. He called your bluff.
He did.
Oh, man. That was funny. I remember you telling me. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I had to DM him. I was like, dude, I apologize on behalf of my friend Justin. Got a little out of hand. It was a frustrating game. I'll admit it. It was a frustrating game. Definitely.
It definitely was. I mean, Shake Milton went off, and we weren't able to get the dub. So I was a little annoyed.
Definitely. No, it's just been a frustrating season for the Sixers team.
It definitely has.
And
what was the other one you said? Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year. Ja Morant.
You said Ja Morant? Yeah, I mean, Ja Morant's averaging 17.5 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, and 1 steal per game. Now, a lot of people may think it's Zion.
That's what I was going to get into.
I was going to say that, yeah. Here's the thing. Go back to when Malcolm Brogdon won Rookie of the Year. They gave it to him instead of Embiid and Saric. Now, of course, I'm a little biased here, but they said it was because Embiid only played 31 games because Embiid clearly had the better stats. I mean, he was clearly the best player that season out of the rookies, but they said he couldn't win it because he didn't have enough games. So when you bring it up here, you're looking at Zion and Morant. You can't compare them. You have to do the same situation. You can't flip-flop on your decisions here. You got to stay consistent.
But again,
Joel didn't play enough games, then I think Zion didn't play. You can't give it to Zion there. Yeah. You have to give it to Ja. I mean, Ja's done an incredible job with the Grizzlies. I mean, most of us, including myself, considered them a bottom 5 team in the West. I mean, they weren't that good. And right now they're, I believe, the 8th seed in the West. So they're in a playoff spot. So.
Memphis, yeah.
They're 8th seed.
But here's the thing. I'm not going to be biased. I know they didn't give it to Embiid because he didn't play a lot of games, but I don't think that should affect if Zion wins it. And here's why. Before Zion made his debut, the Pelicans were 17-24. They were atrocious. They were like 14th in the West. I forget exactly, but before Zion made his debut in January, they were just atrocious. After he made his debut, they went 11-12. So there was an improvement, and they were fighting against Memphis for that playoff spot. So if New Orleans came in there, stole that playoff spot from Memphis, I think you should give Zion the Rookie of the Year because he led that team to a playoff spot. But if the Grizzlies make it instead of the Pelicans, I think you should give it to Ja Morant.
Okay, that's an interesting subject. I mean, if we're going off of that situation, then that's a different story. But as of right now, you got the Grizzlies in the eighth seed.
Yeah, because if the
season ended today,
right,
it would have to be Ja. You can't go
absolutely,
back on that.
I agree.
And
I agree.
But then again, if you're staying consistent to what you ruled earlier,
To what the league believes in, you would give it to Ja Morant.
You should stay consistent within year to year. You can't be flip-flopping. So I think you have to, in that situation, give it to Ja.
I agree.
But that's just because I don't think you should be flipping like that. I mean, if they decide to, I'll be disappointed. But again, if the Grizzlies blew it and somehow the Pelicans pass them because of Zion, and they give it to Zion, I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't complain, but I would be a little upset.
I would be upset because Embiid didn't get it the year that he didn't play that many games.
But I don't think it's necessarily wrong. It wouldn't be the wrong decision necessarily.
No, absolutely.
But
yeah,
I don't think it would be the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be like upset that Zion won it. I would be happy for Zion. I would just be upset with the league for not giving Embiid it when he played 31 games and he didn't win it, even though he put up a historic rookie year.
You just got to stay consistent, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. All right, now this is going to get rough.
You want to do Coach of the Year?
Coach of the Year.
And then we'll go to MVP. We'll save MVP for last, since that's the
Coach of the
award.
Coach of the Year, I think it's Budenholzer. You know, taking that Bucks team on pace to win 70 games is tremendous. Got to give it to him.
Very good coach.
They always give it to whoever has the best record. That's just how the league works. Absolutely.
That's true. I mean, in my opinion, I want to point out 3 coaches that I think did a great job this year. I think Rick Carlisle did great with Dallas.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're very high up in the West now, and I wasn't seeing that.
But was that because of the coach, or was that because of Luka and Kristaps? Was that coaching, or was that? I mean, it is a little bit. You got to
give it to the coach, but I mean,
it is a little bit
like
coaching.
The Bucks. How much the Bucks were first last year? How much have they improved? It's just like
they're on pace to win 70 games.
I know. I'm just saying, like it's a situation like that. How much did Giannis improve? Giannis is shooting better this year, so how much can you say that? Like you can say the team made improvements. They added 2 more. They've added better players.
Yeah, but 70 games.
I know. They won how many last year? They won a good amount. I'm not sure.
Good amount. They didn't win 70. 70 games is hard to do. That's too less than the
That's
96
true. They also
Bulls.
had one of the easiest schedules so far this year. That is. They haven't played
that's just an
yet.
excuse people and people do the same thing with LeBron when they bring up the easy schedule. They say, "Oh, he was in the miserable East, so obviously he's going to make it to the finals."
No. I don't mean easy schedule overall. I mean they haven't played a lot of these better teams. Like they still had, I think, 2 more matchups with the Sixers. They still had another. They still had to play all these good quality teams. They've played more the bottom feeders so far. They've had all their matchups with like the Hornets done. Whereas they haven't, and the Knicks, like those teams, they haven't finished all their matchups with the Sixers, Raptors.
Yeah, but they've had 2. I mean, they've had 2 games with Philly. They've had one with the Lakers. Yeah, but they still
like the rest of their schedule was considered one of the hardest remaining. So that's why I mean, like you don't know for sure that they're going to win 70 games. It's just on pace.
It's all coulda, shoulda, woulda, honestly.
So my other 2 coaches that I was going to mention was Taylor Jenkins from Memphis. He's done a great job with the Grizzlies because I mean, outside Ja Morant, that team doesn't have many other good players.
You know, I'm sorry. Memphis has some good coaches and some underrated coaches. I was a big fan of David Fizdale when he was in Memphis and took them to the playoffs against San Antonio, I believe. San Antonio, yeah.
I want to say it was San Antonio.
I think it was the Spurs, yeah, definitely. But yeah, he just did a great job, and and you can tell David Fizdale was. He loved the game. Like he was very passionate about the game. So I think Memphis has had some very good coaches over the years.
And my other coach I wanted to point out was Billy Donovan with the Thunder. I mean,
100%.
He's done a great job. But then again, you can say how much was actually our expectations were low. Because I mean, I think everyone thought they were going to trade CP3 and trade Gallinari and trade their players away and just tank. But so far they've been competing and they kept them and they've been well. What are they, 6th seed in the West?
Yeah.
So I think they've been good.
And here's the thing with the Thunder. I predicted and this was a hot take at the time. I said, well, I think the Thunder can be an 8th seed. And not only did they exceed my hot take, they exceeded my hot take. I thought they were good enough to be an 8th seed, and people thought I was crazy. They took my expectations and just raised them and moved to the 6th seed. I thought Chris Paul was going to get traded immediately. I thought Billy Donovan was out of OKC. I thought they were just going to blow up the team, start a rebuild, start tanking. No, they said, we're not going to lose. Chris Paul said, I'm going to take this Thunder team. I want to play here. I'm going to take this Thunder team to the playoffs, and he did that. And I have so much respect for that Thunder franchise.
Yep, no, definitely. Now, when it comes to Coach of the Year, I think you got to give it to Nick Nurse. Now, Nurse lost both Kawhi and Danny Green, and so far this team is on pace to win 59 games, which somehow is better than their title season. They lost a superstar and a quality role player for them, which, I mean, the Cavs went from 61 and 50 wins when they had LeBron to only 19 the 2 times he left. And I consider Kawhi's up there with LeBron on superstar level. So you put it in that perspective, they're going to win 59 games, which is more than what they had with Kawhi. And so far this year, Kyle Lowry's missed 12 games. Siakam's missed 11. Ibaka's missed 14. Van Vliet's missed 16. Gasol's missed 28. That's 81 games combined from their top contributors. And you get the 82 missing from Kawhi and Danny Green from last year. Clearly they got better, and I don't think the roster is necessarily that much better than last year's. So I think it was clearly coaching that improved. I mean, that OG Anunoby, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. I know who he is. And they had some other bench point guard that was going off when Van Vliet was out and Lowry was out, because I had him on my fantasy team. I remember, I blank on the name at the moment, but they were going off, and they were just no-namers. And clearly, I don't think they were that talented. No disrespect to them, but they were putting up better stats than I think they deserved, and I think that was because of coaching.
Yeah, and
I think that's why you got to give it to Nick Nurse.
Yeah, and I think another thing with the Raptors, I think they were kind of an underdog this season, just because they were like, all right, you guys are going to suck. You lost Kawhi. It's over.
Yeah, they definitely exceeded expectations.
But they exceeded expectations as well, just like the Thunder. And obviously, I have beef with the Raptors after Kawhi's shot. It still gives me nightmares to this day. But I got to respect them. I got to respect what they've done this year. I think Nick Nurse, coming from being like Nick Nurse worked his way up, and I have tremendous respect for him. I think he's a fantastic coach. He worked his way up from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So if I didn't want to, if it didn't go to Mike Budenholzer, I would give it to Nick Nurse.
I agree with you. I mean, Budenholzer has coached the best team, and they do tend to give that award to the best coach or the best record.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so right. I understand where you're coming from, but I think purely on coaching, like how coaching has benefited the team, I think you got to give it to Nick Nurse. If you're going off of that, which
if you're going off of strictly coaching, yes, I agree, Nick Nurse. But if you're going off the best record,
that's not really
Mike Budenholzer.
Yeah, that's not really what the award normally goes to. So normally it's just best record.
Now we get into the MVP.
Yep.
So I've been a Bucks fan this segment. Definitely been a Bucks fan, and I'm going to stick with it.
I can tell.
I mean, I'm definitely going to stick with it. I got to give it to Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I thought, could Giannis get any better than he did last year? And he just got better. He said, yes, I can get better, and he did. He put on muscle. He upgraded his defense. He just improved amazingly, and I think he outshined everybody. I think he makes players around him better, which I think LeBron does too. But I think Giannis being a little bit younger, Giannis having the Bucks go be the best team in the league, have the best record in the league. I think you got to give it to Giannis this year.
I don't disagree. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, and he definitely does. I don't think you can go wrong with either candidate here. But I got to go with LeBron James. I mean, no one in year 17, like LeBron is, or beyond that, has ever posted a higher value over replacement player, even though James has only played 60 games. I mean, no player age 35 or older has ever turned in a better box plus minus, which means plus minus is pretty valuable to your team. And only 5 players ever have averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists per game past the age of 35, which LeBron has done.
Who are the?
And
Wait, can I guess who those players were?
I don't have them off the top of my head.
I think one of them has to be Jordan, right?
Jordan's probably one of them.
Jordan's definitely one of them.
Yeah, I don't have them
I
off the
think
top of
it.
my head here, but
Oh, I think I know the second one. I think it's Kareem.
Kareem's probably up there.
I think
Wilt
it's
may be up there.
yeah. I think it's either Kareem or Wilt.
Yeah, it's something like that. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head here, but that's definitely
Yeah, I didn't mean to
it's
interrupt you, but yeah,
impressive either way.
very
He's
impressive.
also leading the league in assists for the first time in his career at 10 and a half, 10.6, and he has the Lakers at the top of the West. Now, if that's not enough, I
But
feel
but
like
but but
the
but but but, but, but
MVP is a media award. Hold on. The MVP is a media award here. They tend to give it to the good storyline. And think about it, LeBron in LA, Kobe passed. It's just another not another reason, but like it makes the better storyline. I think about last year. I think Giannis, it's kind of like the Giannis Harden last year. I think in this, if you put him this year, Giannis is LeBron this year. He has the better storyline and more impressive stats. But I think Harden would be Giannis in this situation. In my situation, you'd have Giannis and Harden. They put up better numbers than like. Well, this is kind of confusing here, but you have Giannis and LeBron this year. If you go back to last year, I think in this situation, you'd have LeBron James being Giannis in last year's competition and Giannis being Harden in last year's competition. Harden, the media drove in the fact that Giannis was MVP, just like the media is driving in LeBron as MVP. So I think it gave Harden a disadvantage last year. I think it gives Giannis a disadvantage this year, even though Harden averaged 35 plus points per game last year. Like it doesn't. I think when it comes to MVP, it's almost more of a media award than actually based on anything else.
yeah,
Which is why I think
not
that. But
not all the time.
I think a lot of the time it happens like that.
I don't think so. I think it truly is how you play on the court, and I think
Because there's a lot of times where people deserved MVPs that didn't get them.
well, here's the thing: LeBron could have won it every year he's played, but that would have been boring for the media. So in that sense, I think, but I don't think it was because of obviously the tragedy with Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul. But I I I, I don't think that's why. I think it's truly because I think they truly give it to you because of how you play on the basketball court. And my thing is, I would not be angry. I'm the biggest LeBron fan. The reason
Mm-hmm.
I started watching this game is because of LeBron James, and I love LeBron James so much.
Yeah,
However,
continue.
LeBron has AD. LeBron has a better team around him.
Mm-hmm.
And who does Giannis really have around him? He's got Chris Middleton and Eric Bledsoe, sure, but like comparing that to Anthony Davis, who's a top 5, top 7 player in the
But
league.
outside of Anthony Davis, the Lakers don't have anybody, whereas the Bucks have better
Yeah, but
depth.
you're putting
Difference.
two of the best,
Yeah.
two top 10 NBA players on the same team. Obviously, they're going to dominate.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'd like to use this as an example, though. Let's talk about the Kobe Dirk. Back in 2006, 2007, Kobe put up 31 and a half points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, leading the league in scoring, first team all defense. Meanwhile, Dirk had 24 and 6 and 8 rebounds, not selected to the defensive team, but won MVP. Situations like that where I think the media drove home Dirk that year, and it kind of made it. They didn't go off the stats because clearly Kobe had the better stats, but they didn't give it to him. It's how the voters vote. I think, in my opinion,
at the end of the day, it is how it is.
like there's no
It is what the
wrong
players think.
candidate here.
Right?
Both are great.
I would be fine
It goes
with
to either
either.
one. I'm not upset.
I just
I just
personally think because of Giannis and the team around him versus what team LeBron has around him, I think Giannis deserves it.
That's
But
how I used to feel.
it could go either way. It could be LeBron, it could be Giannis, and that honestly would not make a difference to me. Would not matter much to me. I mean, I would be happy with either.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same situation. I used to actually feel the way you do about the MVP award, and then I've come to realize it's more of a media-driven award, and it's kind of whoever the media picks. So I feel like the media is leaning towards
Yeah,
LeBron right now,
yeah, and
and that's why I think LeBron will win.
I think LeBron being a Laker kind of
Mhm,
sets that for him. Him being in, the biggest name in the NBA, the Lakers. I think
mhm.
having the biggest name, one of the biggest names in sports, with one of the biggest franchises in sports, putting those two together, I think, will drive the media if it is a media award.
No, definitely, and I think the biggest thing with it was Kobe's death. I mean, I've seen people go on ESPN and say how Kobe's death has impacted alone the way they'll vote for the MVP this year. Just say because that's another thing. Like LeBron was so close to him, and he came through losing one of his best friends,
Right.
and has continued to move on, and he's still put up these incredible numbers. I know it wasn't for a long time there because the season's been put on hold, but he even after the death, he was able to put up some pretty impressive numbers. And I
Def-
mean, not
Definitely.
not that that should impact anything, but like when people look at it, it's just another way people could look at it. I don't think that's a right way to look at
I
it,
don't. I
but
don't think that's. I don't think that's right to
I don't think
do
it's
either.
correct,
I
but
don't
I've
think it's the
seen
right thing
people
to do
do it.
either. But yeah, that people
And I've
will.
seen people on ESPN who have votes to vote on MVP. I've seen them go on there and say stuff like that.
Yeah, I
So it's
think
like
I think they've tried to drive it up for views sometimes, and I don't think
I don't agree
that's
with it
right.
at all, but it definitely happens.
But yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Absolutely,
Yeah, so we'll see.
we will definitely see. All right, that was a good discussion. Definitely
It
a
was
great
great.
discussion. Definitely a great debate. Yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Definitely.
Thank you very much. Make sure you guys stay safe, stay healthy, wash your
Exactly. Stay
hands,
safe.
and
Stay
yeah,
6 feet apart.
absolutely, social distancing, all that jazz. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and
Yeah. Thank you.
we'll see you guys when we see you guys.